Today is a new opportunity to accomplish your incredible. So let's wake up each day with a fresh mindset necessary for you to win. I welcome you to Rise and Shine. Morning motivation for the girl boss with author, speaker, and founder of the Prestige Society, Nicole Doss. Let's jumpstart your morning now. Hey, fabulous and wonderful girl bosses. We are here with Rise and Shine. I know it's been a minute, but I wanted to make sure that I touch base with you, wonderful ladies, on this fabulous Tuesday morning. And I want to talk to you about a word that I would love for us to explore together. So, this word is going to be self-doubt. That's right, we're going to talk about self-doubt. Why? Because I understand that many of you are at this point where you are embarking on something new, embarking on maybe a shift in your business, where you are experiencing unchartered territories from what you are used to. I understand that maybe you are expanding in spaces and places where you have not been before. And when we do these things and when we go into spaces that are new to us, there are times where we feel doubtful. There's times where we feel like maybe we're not the ones for the job. Maybe we feel like we can't do it. We don't have enough information to do it. And I'm here to say that you most definitely can. And so I want to explore with you a little bit about self-doubt, what we need to do to make sure that we overcome that self-doubt, and what you're going to do today to help you realize that you are the person equipped for the job, that you are the person that has everything that you need in order for you to be able to execute on whatever it is that your heart desires. So let's talk a little bit about what really self-doubt is. So for me, I talk about the use or use the word gremlin a lot. And that is because I went through a program called IPEC Coaching. And in IPEC, the founder of IPEC, Dr. Bruce Snyder, introduces this topic or this whole idea of a gremlin. And so I remember when I was going through my second session of IPEC, and they asked us to actually create this gremlin. And so everyone had this version of this ugly monster thing and what it looked like to them. And what we had to do is basically put items, words, different things around what the gremlin is telling us about ourselves. And so what I found interesting about this exercise is that there was no one who stood up that said, "Listen, I tried this gremlin project, and I don't have anything telling me something that I can't do." And no one did that. Every last person in the class had a gremlin. And what that means is that every one of us has this voice inside of us that creeps up at certain times, and we'll talk about the timing of the gremlin, to tell us that we are not smart enough, wise enough, educated enough, intelligent enough, skinny enough, young enough, wise enough to do dot, dot, dot. And dot, dot, dot is anything in your life that you truly want to accomplish. So what happens is that when the gremlin appears and tells you that you cannot accomplish these things, it's not just as simple as this little tiny voice in your head. It's actually literally a voice that's in your head that then begins to connect situations, experiences, real experiences, that then begin to further substantiate a negative or false narrative. So let me break that down. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to break down to exactly what I mean by this. So what happens with a gremlin is that it's not just merely a voice in the back of your head telling you that you can't do something. It is a voice in your head telling you that you can't do something and tying it to experiences or situations that have happened in your life to further substantiate a false narrative. So for me, what I see, and I'll just kind of talk about my personal, and then I'll talk about maybe one other client that I know that kind of, who shall remain nameless, who kind of, we discussed kind of what a gremlin does for her. So for me, my biggest insecurity is tied around weight. So one of the things I think that because you always look at the beginning source of where this came from. And so I always tie it to when I turned 9, I kind of went through like a chubby phase, and it was, or maybe it was like when I was 8, because it was right before I had got my period, and I had got my period at the age of 9. And so right before I hit puberty, I had gained like this weird kind of weight that my mom was like, "What is this?" Because it kind of came out of nowhere. I remember having a pot belly. I remember hips kind of forming, where before my mom would be like, "Oh my God, like you don't even have any hips." Like, "Oh my gosh," where now it's like, "Oh, you got hips now." At 9, right? 8, 9. So I used to dance at Princeton Ballet, and I remember I was trying out for the Nutcracker, and I didn't make it. Now, what I recall the reason for me not making it was because of the fact that I remember being really sick. I used to get strep throat a lot as a child, and I remember still telling my mom that I was okay enough to go and audition because I really, really wanted to audition. So I wasn't really honest with her about how I felt about, that I wasn't really well enough. So we go. I audition, and of course I don't make it because I think I have like a fever, my throat hurts, and I'm not feeling 100. So I really can't really dance to my fullest capacity. So when I didn't make it, and then, continuing my classes, this was like real classical ballet. So, there's no, now back in my day, there used to be like a record player that your teacher would play, not a cassette. So there was no records, there was no cassette, there was a pianist and a piano and, a retired ballerina with gray hair who would beat with a stick the beat of the piano, and she would yell out a whole bunch of, French ballet technical terms for you to be able to do. And so remembering, this kind of experience, I remember my mom saying to me, and this is the part that's like a blur. I don't remember quite the experience, but I remember it was right after I didn't make it. And she said, "You know what, Nikki?" She was like, "I don't want you to have an eating disorder, and so I need to pull you out." So I think I was like the only black little girl. Then I was like the only black little girl with like curves in the class. And that was the first time I was introduced to being aware of my body image in a way where my body wasn't up to par with others in my class. So what ended up happening from that experience, it was just the seed. It was the seed planted from someone who loves me to pieces, who never wanted me to experience rejection or hurt or exclusion based off of who I was, because my mom was very, very protective of me. So, one, identify that the root of a gremlin could come from a place of love. Although gremlins are created to keep you safe and small, and they seem to hurt you with what they tell you, understand your gremlin's supposed to keep you safe yet small, okay? So that seed was planted by someone who loves me. What ended up happening throughout my life was this really weird relationship and frustration and just awareness, over awareness of my weight. So I remember being in high school, and I remember this shift of going from like 110 pounds to like 120 pounds and thinking that that was fat. I know, that's craziness, right? And I remember trying not to eat while on a summer vacation with my mom, where I ended up passing out in the shower because I was not eating. She thought I was sick because I had a really bad headache. It was because I had a headache because I wasn't eating. And the smell of food would like make me nauseous because I just was like rejecting food altogether. And I realized after experiencing that I never in my life wanted to feel that way again, like physically feel that way again. And then as I got older in relationships and dating and things of that nature, I always tend to date people who were really concerned about my weight. And when I look back, it's hilarious because it's like weight that I would kill to be at this age. And so what ends up happening is that the false narrative that the gremlin tells me is that you're not attractive because you are overweight. You are not enough. You aren't because you are overweight. You are not of value because you're overweight, and that you will never be successful in being a healthy weight. So why even try to do any of the work? And to even share this like feels like completely vulnerable because even today I think that I am always concerned about losing weight and trying to be this person that's like this total package, right? And I share this to let you know that, even those of us who seem to have it together, we have these gremlins too that really put self doubt in our heads. So, of course, the false narrative is that of course you're of value. Of course you're beautiful. Of course you are, wonderfully made and uniquely made. And, I think that what happens is that remember I was talking about that the way that the gremlin will tell you something and it will substantiate it, that false narrative, by attaching itself to real events. It's because I've had real conversations about my weight with people whom I've dated. I've had real conversations about my weight with my husband. It's not like these things don't exist. They exist. But the false narrative is that extraness to it, that, oh, my husband doesn't find me attractive because I'm overweight. Like, that's not the case, but that's what the gremlin tells me. And then what happens is that depending on your personality type, depending on your behavior, depending on how you respond to frustration or quote unquote failure. I don't really believe in failure. I believe in a misalignment of things that actually happen versus what you anticipated would happen. But what ends up happening in that space where there's that misalignment or that quote unquote failure is that you, depending on who you are, you may give up. You may self-sabotage your efforts subconsciously, so you don't even realize it, but you do. You may become completely introverted and shut down emotionally as a defense mechanism. Maybe you just become silent and don't really want to. We call it a weird wall among my circle of friends, where you put a weird wall up because now you don't know how to react to the situation. So depending on who you are, this is how you may respond to your gremlin. So now I take, a very personal experience to just kind of shed some light on how this may impact you in your business. I had a client who I noticed would react very sensitively to just the situations around relationships and business relationships to be exact. And I would notice that her response would become very sharp if she would feel rejected. And the reason I say would feel rejected is because, unfortunately, your gremlin's not going to tell you the whole story. The gremlin's just going to tell you just the piece that is going to be able to confirm their false narrative. So, in having a conversation with her around something that had happened where I wanted her to understand like what was really going on so that she knew what she was experiencing wasn't rejection. It was just like literally a series of events where I just wasn't available. And so, and me getting sick at the same time. So what was so interesting is that, being a coach, I realized it was so much deeper than me, and it was okay, like, to explore this. And, we just had a really great conversation around her view of relationships and rejection and what has that felt like in the past. And, she's like, no, but these were real things that happened. I said, absolutely. But what your gremlin will do is literally take the past of real things that have happened to you to help to confirm or further substantiate a false narrative, because although those individuals may have rejected you in the past or hurt you in the past, what was happening with me was not that. And so you have to be careful because, once again, that was something that happened for her personally that then was impacting her professionally with her business. So I want you to think about, when you're experiencing self-doubt, what you're experiencing is your gremlin telling you something about what you can or cannot do based off of a myriad of events that's happened in your life. And so what I want you to do is go through just a couple of steps of how you can move past that self-doubt, because I really someone remind me, and not someone, it was my husband, reminded me recently the power of prayer and meditation, and what that means for the person who is really focused on their purpose driven business. And lately I've just kind of been like in this work mode, grind mode, set goals, execute goals. And I feel like I've been like, studying the word and reading the Bible, but I realize I have not been in a space of true meditation and prayer. And the one thing he said to me that, like, I don't even think he realized how much that kind of hit me, was that he said, he's like, it was something along the lines like he never realized, or he had forgotten, how you can just ask for something and how God will provide. How you can just ask for resources to help you and God will provide it. And I'm like, that's so true. How did we forget that, if you are in prayer around your purpose driven business, if you're asking for God to order your steps, and you know that you are, kind of moving in his space, that you also can, ask and you shall receive. And you can ask God for guidance, you can ask God for resources, and you can ask God for discernment, and those things will be placed in your lap. And that is what self-doubt will do to you. Self-doubt will make you forget that you can do these things. And so why I really want to tackle self-doubt today is because I want you to know that you can do all things. You have to be able to tap into the right energy, into the right source that will help you to be able to accomplish those things. For me, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That is what I truly believe. For you, you may believe that it's a different higher power that you need to tap into, but whatever your higher source, your higher power is, you need to tap into that and realize that you have the ability to overcome any false narrative that your gremlin is telling you that you cannot achieve. Your gremlin will show up at the point where you are closest to your breakthrough to keep you from moving forward, because the goal of that gremlin is to keep you safe and small. So if the goal is to keep you safe and small, then the goal is to tell you that if you go outside of this boundary that you've created for yourself, this barrier that you created for yourself, then you are going to fail, that you are not going to be able to make it. Well, first of all, let's just put this fear of failure at rest. I just had this conversation with someone last night. Anything that I have learned that has truly helped me professionally, that I mean, like really, really, really helped me professionally, came from a failure. And I know that sounds so cliche because everyone talks about, oh, you have to fail in order for you to succeed. But I'm telling you, I mean, I remember working as a learning consultant and having to implement a learning management system for the state of New Jersey. Before then, I had literally had worked at two different companies where I had implemented a learning management system. And the system we were implementing at the state of New Jersey was literally the same system I had just gotten done implementing at a different company, at a mortgage company. What I thought was so interesting is that those two implementations went perfectly. I mean, perfectly. So, like, I learned the what we call a happy path process of what to do, but it was through that failure of an experience that I had experienced at this state that I truly, truly learned what not to do. I mean, that experience, although it was successful, if you look at it from a project standpoint, I mean, they actually implemented it, but it was a, I guess not really a failure, because I don't believe in failures. I just believe in the misalignment of expectation. But I really thought it was going to go perfectly. I literally worked with the same exact people at the company that I worked with when I was implementing it at a different organization. But what happened is they had a new platform that was a security platform that would allow people not to be able to hack into others' learning management systems. And so because of this, there were things that were new to them that they really could not foresee. And I felt like every time I was either creating a test script or trying to work through test scripts, I felt like my entire day was about really trying to work through these issues that we had no timeline of when those issues would be fixed. And then, I remember the director I worked for was like, I feel like this is, we were sold, a Bentley, and instead we got a lemon of a car. And so, that was frustrating. Dealing with the agencies who then were going to be responsible for implementing this, that was going to be painful. I don't feel like there was a full requirements checklist of business analytics requirements done for it. So all these things were like, wow, Nicole, whenever you implement this kind of technology, these are the things you absolutely need to make sure is going to work. And there needs to be a stipulation in the contract saying if any one of these things that are not working, then we have the right to sever the contract. Because at that point we were kind of like stuck, and then we were like in this stuck of breach of contract, so we had to keep moving forward with this system that we didn't feel like really was working. Through that pain of every day working through troubleshooting, through this dealing with, oh my gosh, agencies that first would make me just cry in my cubicle, then made me actually like allies today. Like even today, they'll reach out to me and ask me for opportunities and things like that nature. I realized, hey, you know what? I actually learned so much more on that project than I did the two other implementations that I worked on that were great. So when I think of failure, I think of it being this misalignment of expectations. I'm thinking everything's going to work on the happy path, but there's some twists and turns that took place. But those twists and turns are valuable because they're teaching you a lesson that you're able to take with you on your next journey. So don't fear failure. Failure is not a real thing. There's a misalignment of what you expected, and then ask yourself, what is the lesson you need to learn, and make sure you do your due diligence and just apply it. Because the failure really comes when you go through this and you're so caught in the woe is me that you are missing the lesson. So then when you go to the next time around, you're doing the same thing all over again. So definitely do your due diligence and make sure that you are focusing on how to move forward in your business as far as that. So the reason why I say this is because I want you to make sure that you view failure very differently so that you aren't afraid to move forward in this uncharted territory. This is your time for you to shine. That means that if it's an expected outcome or an unexpected outcome, all of it needs to happen. Point blank. All of it has to happen. It's part of your journey. It's part of your testimony. It's part of who you are being molded to become. So you have to go through it. So once you realize that's the case, then you don't even care about, what this quote unquote failure is going to be, because you realize that all of this is part of your journey. All that you are trying to do is be obedient to what it is you're supposed to do and follow that direction given to you by your higher power. That's all you should really be focusing on. So now that we've gotten that out the way, we're ready to go on to our uncharted territories and really begin to experience something new. So with that being said, let's just jump into it. The first thing we're going to do to rid ourselves of self-doubt, because remember, self-doubt, gremlins, all of that shows up when you're the closest to your breakthrough. So you ready? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to think about this one thing that you really, really, really want to be able to embark on. Whatever new journey this is, figure out what it is and just write it down. Like, what's this thing that you want to do, but you are scared from here to high heavens to do it? What is that thing? And I want you to write it down. So what is it that scares you? Second thing, what is it about this thing that scares you? So let me explain to you what I mean by that. I was asked to be a campaign manager. That scared the crap out of me. Like, what? So when I had to think about it, what was it about this role that scared me? One, I've never been a campaign manager before. And two, I didn't want to fail the people that, I was going to work for. I didn't want to be a disappointment to them. I wanted to be able to be successful, and I didn't want to kind of go through that trek of being a newbie at it, because I felt that their role and what they were running for was really, really important. And I wanted them to be successful, and I wanted them to be able to get into office. So I was able to write down what scares me, the role of being a campaign manager, and what about this thing scares me. I'm a novice at it, and I don't want to be a disappointment to people who I care about. Boom. So that's your 1 and 2. What scares you and what is it about this thing that scares you? Okay? Make sense? Great. 3, what is your gremlin telling you about this thing? So my gremlin told me that I don't have enough experience, I'm not wise enough, I'm not organized enough to be able to carry out and do this thing. That was definitely, and the women that came to me said, that they all 3 of them wanted me, and I'm like, why? And the first thing my gremlin told me is, you're not that great. Isn't that crazy that a voice in your own head could tell you something so demeaning and diminishing? And what my gremlin was telling me was that not only are you not that great, but now they're going to find out that you're just not that great. That's crazy. Crazy talk. So that's what my gremlin told me. So once you can figure out what your gremlin's telling you, then you're able to kind of address the purple elephant in the room, right? So identify what's that thing that your gremlin's telling you. Once you identify, what your gremlin is telling you, then you're able to then move on to how you can debunk your gremlin. And you have to do that through prayer and tapping into your higher power. For me, I had to pray and for me, I pray to God, right? So the Alpha Omega, Jehovah Jireh, like that's who I pray to. So I was like, listen, God, if this is for me, if this is something that is going to help these ladies, please, please give me the courage to take on something that's so new. Allow me to have the care to be able to do the due diligence necessary for them to be able to make an impact to the residents who they want to serve. So I really had to pray and meditate and listen for direction. Once I was able to pray, meditate, and listen for direction, what began to happen is that everything that was motivating me to move forward began to outweigh what my gremlin was saying. Because it wasn't about me. Like, it was not about me at all. It was really about helping women move forward in an arena, like in a new arena. And like, what? How awesome is it that prestige could be a part of helping women politically? So I began to map out all the things that I needed to do to be successful, classes I needed to take, YouTube videos I needed to watch, really understanding things around marketing and messaging, and really tapping into that, making time on my planner so I can make time during my day to really do the work that's required for them, as well as doing the studying and the research necessary for them as well. So with that, I started seeing this roadmap of everything that I could do, and I began to see how my purpose outweighed my gremlin. And once you identify that your purpose outweighed your gremlin, you do the last and final thing, which is you just do the work required, right? So I hope that, and for me at the end, I was still like really, really excited and really, really scared. And for me, that's an indicator that you're moving in the right direction. Like if you're just excited and just excited, then I don't know. It's not like that. It's like, okay, you're excited, but you're excited in your comfort zone. But when you're excited and scared at the same time, that's something that lets me know this is the path where I need to move forward in. So that is something that even though I felt like I needed to move forward and do the work required, there was definitely this aspect of being excited and scared that allowed me to be humble and remain humble and grounded through the entire process. So ladies, I hope that today you're able to really overcome anything that may be making you doubtful. I hope today you're able to squash your gremlins and move forward in whatever territory that's brand spanking new to you. And remember, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify what is it that's scaring you at this moment. And then when you identify what that thing is, you're going to say, well, what about it scares me? Once you identify what are the elements of this thing that scares you, you're then going to really tap in and see What is your gremlin telling you? Is your gremlin telling you that you're not smart enough, educated enough, wise enough to do this thing? And if that's the case, you're going to pray and meditate and ask for direction. And once you're doing that, you're going to be able to see whether or not your purpose is outweighing your gremlins. And once you're able to see that your purpose outweighs your gremlins, you're going to then move forward and do the work required. All right, ladies, have an awesome, wonderful day. Bye.